Welcome, everyone, to the Media Row podcast with me, Justin Miller. Really excited for today's show because yesterday we weren't sure if we were going to get him on or not. Now we know for 100% sure he's coming on. Hunter Phillips, the play-by-play announcer for the Drake women's basketball team, wanted to get him on because yesterday, while we were talking about the Drake women, this team is just on a special run. And while it is the third time that we're seeing Allison Pullman coach a team to 9 straight victories, they've won 19 straight Missouri Valley Conference games. They have what I think is the clear favorite for Missouri Valley Conference Player of the Year. I think they have someone that is going to be really hard to overlook for the 6th Player of the Year in Ava Hawthorne. You could make another argument. They have the Defensive Player of the Year also in Anna Miller and Coach of the Year in Pullman. They have so much going right for them right now, and I think it's just a perfect time to have Hunter on. And Hunter's been a huge supporter of really anything I've been able to do so far in this early part of my career. He was a great help as a student when I was a student broadcaster, and I would annoy him during his women broadcast calls and ask him questions. And as a fellow DBS guy himself, it was just cool to see, like, okay, I'm on the right path. If this is what Hunter did, this is a good path to be on. And then when I went on with Iowa State and KASI, KXNO, he was a huge supporter of that and always was willing to help me out whenever I needed. And so now that I'm in this part of this really interesting career, and I'm excited. He is just as excited as I am, and so it just means the world to have him on. He's been a great mentor, and I'm going to do this a lot, like how I did with Dave Snell from Bradley last week, where talk a little about his career, but mostly today is going to just be about the greatness of the Drake women's basketball season to this point and the huge week they have coming up this week. I mean, tomorrow they take on, or Thursday they take on Belmont, and then Saturday they're back at it against Murray State. So a lot to get to. So I won't take any more of his time. Please welcome to the Media Row podcast, Hunter Phillips, play-by-play announcer for the Drake women's basketball team. So, Hunter, I think the best place to start is congratulations on your 300th broadcast with the Drake women.
Oh, well, thanks, Justin. It's just a pleasure to be on with you. Excited to be on with your new platform, and yeah, 300. Cannot believe it. It just feels like yesterday when I just got started, and now with our last game at Illinois State, which was just as exciting as the very first broadcast, for that to be number 300, kind of seemed pretty fitting. But yeah, it means a lot. I've had a number of people reach out to me here over the last few days, and I'm sure more once we're finally back at the Knapp Center. But yeah, just consider myself really lucky. But when I started kind of adding things all together, I'm like, holy smokes, 300. So time flies, man, when you're having fun.
Is this where, because a Drake alum, we both were at DBS, the Drake Broadcasting System, as students.
That's right.
Is this where student Hunter thought he would be at this point, this early?
Wow. That's just a hard-hitting question right off the bat. But
That's what I do here.
Exactly. So what drew me to Drake was the amount of opportunities that were available specifically for play-by-play broadcasting, because I've figured out at kind of a fairly young age that I probably wasn't going to make it anywhere as a professional or semi-professional athlete. So like, what's the next best thing? And that's to join sports in some kind of capacity. And, as a kid growing up, you're not thinking about, oh, I want to be a general manager, or, I want to work in the front office. Well, no, I want to be on TV, or I want to be on the radio. I mean, growing up in Des Moines, and like, listening to the late Larry Kotler, that was like my first, indoctrination to Drake basketball, him and Dolph Polium. But then we're just really blessed here in Iowa to have great broadcasters, at the collegiate level with the likes of John Walters, Gary Dolphin, Gary Rima at the time at UNI, and then with Keith Murphy, Andy Garman, Andy Fales. I mean, the list goes on and on. And so, just right here, you just you feel like, okay, it'd be great to be a part of like that fraternity, if you will. And so I knew that, going into Drake, that those opportunities were going to be there. And then the first time I stepped in the Knapp Center to call a game, I mean, you feel it too, that there's just this certain kind of rush. It's just different when you're courtside there. And I really fell in love with our women's basketball team and the way that they played the game. This was when Jenny Baranczyk really first started and really started to get kind of her style of play in. And then it just took off, as we've all seen. And now with Allison Pullman at the helm. And so, to make a long story short, I never envisioned myself just, being able to jump right from, graduation into the role that I'm still in. And so, I guess timing it was just meant to be. I don't know why it was meant to be for me, but again, I never take a broadcast for granted, and I've enjoyed every step of the way, which I know we'll get into some of the memories and some of the great moments from 2016, 17 to present. But yeah, I never envisioned myself being right here because, as you know, in this industry, it's very, very competitive, like it is, on the basketball court or the football field. And opportunities I mean, there are more broadcasters than there are opportunities, right? And so, especially for Division I, coming out of college, like it's still, even to this day, not many people get that chance. And so I'm just lucky that Drake took a chance on me, and just have not looked back. And it's just been just such a blessing and such a ride, and cannot believe that this is already the ninth year. But no, I didn't envision myself, in May of 2016, thinking this is where I would be, even here coming into 2025.
So was it legitimately right after graduation you got hired, or how long after you walked on the stage to putting on the headset full time for Drake women's basketball?
So it was actually the middle of the summer. So I would have to
Okay.
say mid-July, and I got a phone call, and uh, things are probably a little bit different now, but I didn't have to even turn in a demo tape, because the people within the Drake athletic department at the time, I mean, they heard my work on 94.1 The Dog, the same station that you were a part of, and being with the Drake broadcasting system. And so that was what was so great, was that I guess in this instance they were already pretty familiar with how I sounded. The important thing was just showing up to each of the games, and having that presence there. I mean, you never think of something like, how important it is just to show up, but it is just to have that consistent presence. And then starting to, at the time, I may sound archaic, but tweeting, having the live updates from the games, even when the team was on the road, like our DBS Twitter account, it was keeping tabs on everything. And so those people in the athletic department took notice of it, and I got to meet folks during my time. And again, it's not always about what it's who And so just a couple of months after walking across the stage, I got the phone call, and I just remember how excited I was, and then being able to meet with Jenny for the first time, and getting to meet my broadcast partner, who's still my broadcast partner, Randy Morrow, at the time. And a fun fact, I actually graduated with his son at
Oh,
Drake,
really?
Mason. We were in the same class, J school guys. So we already hit it off, and have been lucky to work with him because he knows so many people within basketball, so many people here in Central Iowa and across the country. It's, no matter where we go, Randy always knows somebody, and he always takes the time to introduce me to them. And that's what it's all about. I mean, basketball, college sports, just in general, broadcasting, it's a tight knit circle. You meet so many people, and the connections are there. And so that's been just one of the many fun parts about what I do. But yeah, it was just a few months after graduation. That's when I got the call, and
That's
I
incredible.
said, yeah, I mean, yeah, let's go.
You said Randy knows everyone, it seems like. Who's the most famous person or maybe the most unique person he's introduced you to? And you're like, how the hell do you know this person?
Right. Well, I'll tell you, two people that, well, I never got to meet them, but so he has been involved with the All Iowa Attack, which has produced some of the great women's
Oh, yeah.
college basketball players. Even Harrison Barnes went through the All Iowa Attack. They're up in Ames, and so I mean, he has told me stories where he has got to meet, Kobe Bryant. The late Kobe Bryant was in the same Nike EYBL circuit, as a coach, had the Mamba team, and so he got to, interact with Kobe Bryant and just several different, former NBA players. But in terms of like who I've gotten to meet, I'm just going to say my first interaction with Caitlin Clark, because it was not like, it's a press conference or anything like that. I mean, it was getting to meet her parents, getting to meet her brothers, and just kind of, getting to hear that competitive side that maybe you don't get access
Yeah.
to. And that was really neat. But you also see how she was, and this was before just the stardom, came about. And you quickly understand how she's able to handle everything because of her upbringing. She's got just tremendous parents. And, a fun fact about Caitlin Clark's mom is that her father was the head football coach at Dowling Catholic. And so Randy knows Caitlin Clark's family, going way back. And so, just hearing all the stories from him, and then he gets to share them, and I'm just, sitting back and just enjoying like just all the laughs, and just hearing how she was able to navigate specifically really through her sophomore year. And then, of course, in her junior year, that was when she really took off and Iowa made it to the national championship game. But that was really cool, where we were able to watch her. This wasn't when we were playing Iowa, but we got to go to a Big Ten game before making a road trip through the Valley, and just yeah, being able to meet with her and fellow. There's a lot of players that went through the All Iowa Attack that are with Iowa. So the likes of Hannah Stolke, Sydney Falter. I mean, you're talking about players that were big pieces of their championship game teams over the last few years. So I'd say that's probably the neatest thing, because now you see who Caitlin Clark is, and she is the biggest star in basketball, period. And just to be able to have that interaction. And one final note: when we were getting ready to fly down to Puerto Rico, Caitlin Clark's parents were in the airport waiting to go down to Phoenix. They were going to meet up with Caitlin, and I'd only met Caitlin's parents maybe two or three times. They remembered my name, and
Oh,
it
wow.
just those are the type of people that they are there. And that's why Caitlin is so well grounded as she is, and how she's able to handle everything. And just kind of hearing again some of the goofy stories. This was after Caitlin had her gaff at a I think it was some sort of a pro-am golf tournament, where she sliced her opening drive, and they
Oh,
were kind
yeah.
of making fun of her and her golf game and all that. But no, just kind of seeing that side of a player that not many people get to. That was kind of the access that that Randy has. But he's great friends with Jan Jensen, really close to her, Lisa Bluter, Bill Fenley, especially Billy Fenley. I mean, he'll come up and shake our hands and talk to us beforehand. It seems like no matter where we go, though, he definitely has the inside scoop, and I try to take advantage of that as much as possible.
Let's jump into this year's Drake women's team because man, they've just been on an unbelievable run. They've looked really good doing it, playing just clean team basketball, 20 plus assists, it feels like every other game. Where do you see this team? Where has it separated itself from last year's team that won the championship?
Justin, going into the year, we knew three things: that Katie Dinnebeer was going to be Katie Dinnebeer, right? The reigning Missouri Valley Conference Player of the Year. Anna Miller was back, the two-time Defensive Player of the Year in the Valley. And then Courtney Becker, who is still currently tied for fourth amongst active players in Division I basketball and games played. I mean, those three were going to have a huge impact, but Graceberg was had graduated and she's playing extremely well over in Mongolia. And then Taylor McCauley, who had an incredible journey at Drake, didn't start off very well due to injury, but then just really blossomed in her final year. Anna Brown also graduated. So you're like, okay, we know the three players that are going to be the standard, but who else is going to step up? Well, you add an Abby Alsma, who had that Valley experience at Illinois State, coming in, a really highly touted freshman class. And I think what we're seeing here, Justin, especially after Drake's most recent game at Illinois State, where six different players scored in double figures, the three seniors each had a double double, was that the depth of this team is probably at its deepest. And it's just been a matter of getting just this group to be able to build its chemistry. And it took a little bit. And you look at the non-conference schedule, a challenging, rugged non-conference schedule. This team, it's hard to believe right now because they're on a 9-game win streak. They lost 5 in a row, but you look at the teams that they lost. I mean, 3 teams, actually check that, 4 teams that made it to the NCAA tournament. You got Green Bay, Iowa State, and then Creighton. And so they hit a little bit of a rough patch to begin things in Puerto Rico, not only with Green Bay, but then also Wyoming. But then, boy, that Washington State game, it just seemed like that really reignited things for this team. And they haven't looked back ever since, have not lost. But I think what we're seeing is that depth is probably the deepest that it's been. And even, aside the fact of the 6 players scoring in double figures at Illinois State, you have Tatum Gray coming into the game. She didn't play all of last year due to injury. She comes up with huge defensive plays while Anna Miller was resting in the first half. Brooklyn Daly comes in, and I call it the Daly Show because she makes an instant impact on both ends of the floor. She had the last layup before halftime. Just when Illinois State thought that they were able to trade basket for basket, then Drake was able to finish one off before going into the locker room. And there are so many other players. Peyton McCabe knocking down a 3, and she's been playing in big moments. Grace Knutson, even though she didn't call bank, she made a 3 as well. And so you just love it. This team just had so much fun and won at a place where they hadn't won since 2020 when Becca Hittner was a senior, and that game went to overtime. And so, and this was after a hard fought win at Bradley. This team, each and every year, it seems like they find ways to win, and it all starts really with those battles that they have, even if they're not wins in their non-conference. But I think the difference with this group, what we're seeing right now, is just how deep they are. And Shannon Fornshell, another player that I did not include, jumping into the starting lineup midway through non-conference play. Boy, she scored, 8 of the first 12 points for Drake yesterday. She's doing a great job on the glass. There's just a versatility about this group and a depth about this group. And Coach Pullman said it great on Sunday on our post game show, and that we're just kind of scratching the surface right now in terms of the potential of this group. And I think that's a pretty scary proposition, especially when you're right now on a 19-game Valley win streak, winning 9 games in a row, that you're really just scratching the surface for what you're capable of, especially from a depth standpoint. And so these teams over the years, they've always had a lot of talent, but it's just a matter of, especially when you get into these Valley series where you're playing 2 games in a span of less than 48 hours. And then once you get to, in this case, Evansville for the MVC tournament, depth is going to be a huge, huge key for you to eventually cut down the nets, because someone may get in foul trouble. There may be somebody who has to sit out due to injury or illness, God forbid, in those kind of cases. You never know. And so those kind of performances like we saw at Illinois State, I think, are really going to propel this team moving forward. But they have a fun and challenging stretch coming up, starting with Belmont on Thursday. But I think the big difference with this team is just depth-wise, they're about as deep as they've been in the Allison Pullman era.
I want to get to their depth in a little bit, but you mentioned something earlier about how it seemed to just take them a little bit to get team chemistry really gelled together. As a fan, it felt fairly fast when you considered there's transfers in there, there's first-year players in there. Overall, I think most coaches would be okay with there just being those minor speed bumps and nothing too drastic, because overall, I felt like everyone gelled together fairly quickly.
Yeah, I would say so. And it really all stems from the summer. And I think a great thing that what Coach Pullman and her staff do, and this even goes back to the days of Coach Jenny, was having a youth summer camp where you have the first year freshmen coming in. Like this is their first dose of being, a Drake student athlete well before classes are even in session. And even for a transfer like an Anna Brown the year prior, and then Abby Alsma, who, I mean, my goodness, she had a million things going through her mind and had 12 points against her former team at Illinois State. But I think right there, having those kind of moments together on campus that fairly early on, it's so important. And so we have a Be Blue podcast where I'll, bring on the incoming freshmen, and it doesn't matter if we're talking about Katie Dinnebeer, years ago when she was fresh off a state championship at Waukee High School, to even Grace Knutson, who led all of the state of Iowa in 3-pointers made last year. One thing is always consistent, and that is I love being able to spend time at the camps to not only work with the young kids, to be able to just really kind of get out of my shell for some players who may be a little bit quiet. It's their first opportunity to get to interact with one another, and it's so important. And this team has also been very fortunate to be able to go on to trips. Before last season, go to Italy. I don't know what's in the water in Italy, but every time they've gone there, the next season they win an MVC regular season and tournament title. But even without those kind of experiences, I think that Coach Pullman and her staff just know how important it is to build that sort of camaraderie during the off season, during the summer. And when you travel with this team, when you see them on the court at home, you can just tell that they're a tight knit unit. They're really, really close. They're, each other's best friends. They have each other's back. And the result is they play just a fun brand of basketball. And I often joke, like, don't let that smile fool you. Don't let their smiles fool you out there, because when they are smiling, when they are at their best, they have one of the best offenses in the entire country. And so I think it just all stems, Justin, from, right as the non-conference starts, where you're playing really, really challenging teams. I mean, they had to play at North Dakota State at noon on a Monday to begin the regular season. This team was ready to go, but they were down at half, and we've seen this team just continue to make adjustments, especially in the second half. But this group, the tradition starts where the seniors just know how important it is for everyone to be fully involved, and you just see each and every one of these players love each other, and it translates not only off the court, but we're also seeing it on the court as well. But it all starts with a great program during the off season.
I tell everyone they are the easiest team to cheer for. I truly believe
Yes.
that. Like, you bring up the smiles. It is so funny to me to watch how Pullman coaches in games, because it almost looks like she knows exactly what buttons to push on each player, and they all seem to just gel so well. And the
Yeah.
chemistry is always at an all-time high, it seems like, when Pullman has been the head coach here so far at Drake.
Yeah, and I tell you, my first memories of Allison when she was the associate head
Hmm.
coach is she's out there in practice with the team. In fact, I wasn't there for this practice, but I heard a story where I think maybe her pinky finger got dislocated or something, because that's how hard she was practicing. She just popped it right back in. So let's go. I mean, people don't, I think some fans may not realize how good of a college player she was at UNI. I mean, some of the stats that she put up, just incredible. And so she has that bulldog mentality, and she'll be out there in practice, and she expects, everyone on the staff to also be out there. And it's just kind of this all-in mentality. And what's great is you have a player like Becca Hittner that's out there practicing. So you have the 3-time Missouri Valley Conference Player of the Year out there, just being able to show her knowledge of the game. And you talk about somebody who, I mean, she's the director of basketball analytics and player development, just a perfect role for her. She's one of the smartest individuals you'll ever meet. Courtney Rush was one of those glue players. I remember Coach Baranchek calling her a utility player. She was at Mason City High School, went to Northern Iowa Area Community College up in Mason City, and just was an integral part of that team that got over that hurdle to win its first MVC tournament title under Coach Baranchek. And so you have those two players still on staff. Kelly Greenway has been such an excellent addition. Came in from being a head coach at Grandview. Whitney Moore was a fantastic NAIA player and international experience. And I tell you, from a post perspective, Jan Jensen, we know her being the post whisperer, but Whitney is someone that has really elevated the defense and the post play, really from that coaching side of things. And so I just think that Allison just has this energy about her that you want to run through a brick wall for her, and she'll do anything for her team. But she also, she just also has, again, I like how you pointed out that it's hard not to root for this team. Well, Allison's one of the best people out there. And I know you've had many opportunities to talk with her.
She's great.
She'll give you as much time. I mean, she's got so many commitments. I mean, I don't know how she handles it all, but she does it all with a smile on her face. But make no mistake about it, she is as competitive of a person as you're ever going to meet. And that's why this team has, I think, that unique balance of being able to play the game, at a fierce and competitive level, but also playing that fun brand of basketball that we've come to love at Drake.
So you've been able to kind of see, Coach Baranchek, how she's handled her players and coached throughout her time with Drake, and then of course moved to Oklahoma. How does Pullman do things similarly and also differently from Baranchek?
I just think that those two worked so well together. And, Allison, for those who don't know, was actually on the coaching staff
Mm-hmm.
prior to Jenny even arriving at Drake. And Jenny was just like so impressed with Allison and was like, we need to keep her here. And not only was she an assistant coach, well, quickly she then became an associate head coach, and she became the main recruiting coordinator. And so she was the one that developed relationships with the likes of Caitlin Ingle, Maddie Monahan, Sammy Backroad. I mean, you name it. And those players went on to become some of the best point guards, not only in Drake history, but in the history of the Valley. And so Jenny, again, very, very competitive, not only from her playing days at Iowa, her playing days at Dowling Catholic, but as a coach. And I feel like a lot of that has rubbed off on Allison, where, look, she was there side by side with Jenny for numerous years and saw, how she was able to get the most out of her players. And so I do think that the unique fabric with Allison is that, and this isn't a knock on Jenny at all, but Allison likes to kind of add the intensity on the defensive end of the floor. Jenny, we know it's all about offense. Like, you're going to have to outscore us if you think you're going to have any chance at all. And so for Allison, she has that defensive minded, background from her days of playing at UNI. And now we're seeing this team really be prolific, not only offensively, but also this team's only been out rebounded twice this year. They're one of the best defensive rebounding teams in the entire country going into the series against the likes of Bradley and Illinois State. Eighth in the country in terms of fewest offensive rebounds allowed per game. And so it all stems from having that mentality that, we're going to beat you on the glass. That was certainly a big key in Drake's most recent win at Illinois State. But we see this team really mix things up defensively. Unlike with Jenny, who kind of had that standard, matchup zone defense that, again, it threw a lot of teams off, but teams were able to, scout against it. Well, it's not so easy to scout against that now because, Coach Pullman likes to throw in different kind of looks here and there to keep you off guard. And so both coaches very similar in terms of, Jenny, again, someone that was just so fun to work with, easy to work with. She didn't like to lose. Allison doesn't like to lose. They haven't lost very often. But I think that Allison, from an X's and O's perspective, just kind of has a little bit more of a defensive edge. But they both, in terms of even like the mannerisms and just the way that they kind of have interactions with their players, it's still kind of funny to this day because you kind of have to, remind yourself, wait, Jenny's not here. I mean, this is Allison. And so those two just had a great relationship, still do. And we were just lucky at Drake to be able to have Allison say yes to being the head coach. And man, what a ride she's on right now.
No, and like also with Allison and this team, we go through all the stats and we're seeing the 19 game Valley Conference win streak, 9 straight, all these good things. But is there anything right now from you covering this team? Is there anything missing? What's missing on this team that it could really take them to a different level?
I think going back, Justin, to the overall depth piece, this is going to be still kind of, I don't want to call it a work in progress, but you're still trying to look for that consistency, right? And so I think bench scoring is still going to be a big thing moving forward. One player I didn't even talk about, again, adding to the depth and how many different players there are. Ava Hawthorne was one of the 6 players
She's
that
been
scored
one
in
of
double
my
figures.
favorites
Oh
so
man,
far
what a
this
what
week.
a what a December she had, Justin. And this was after she was in the starting lineup to begin the year, and then now is becoming the 6th player off the bench, and that's one of those things where Drake likes to rotate in players rather quickly. So uh, it's really been beneficial for a player like Ava, and I think her along with other players like Brooklyn Daly, Taden Gray, Grace Knutson, Maggie Taylor. We've seen her come up with some big minutes, especially in non-conference play, and then Peyton McCabe. I think it's just trying to find a little bit more consistency out of that bench group because there are going to be games where you're going up against an opponent that's going to key in on Katie Dinnebeer, and she has been absolutely dynamite this year. Make no mistake about it. But there are going to be the games where she may not have her A game, or it could be an Anna Miller or a Courtney Becker. So that's when you need depth to really stand out. And I think that that's still going to be, Coach Pullman talked about it before the weekend series in Illinois, where they were coming off a game in which they had 25 bench points against Valparaiso, the most in a Valley game. Clearly the sample size pretty short, but I asked her, I mean, is that a benchmark, no pun intended, for your bench scoring here, moving forward? And she said, we want to build off of that. And that's going to have to be something that we're going to have to do in order to really maximize who we are as a team. So I'd say look out for that. Look out for those rotations, the players that come in and out of the lineup and off the bench to just continue to make plays. It may not be necessarily scoring, but earning extra possessions that result in scoring. So I think that's probably the biggest thing going forward is finding a little bit more consistency out of the bench. But I'd say the Illinois State game, that's a really, really good starting point now that we're, still in the early portion of January.
With Katie Dinnebeer's season, she's been incredible. I feel like every other game we get those stats from Mike Mahan or Dave with Drake as well, and it'll be something that she broke, either Drake history, Valley history. Where does that just rank in all-time seasons by a Drake Bulldog?
Wow. Drake, as you know, Justin, our fans know, talked about a little bit ago. I mean, it's been point guard you or assist you. That's what I like to call it. I mean, it started with Caitlin Ingle. I still remember her winning the state championship at Southeast Polk and
I was
thinking,
like in fifth or sixth grade. My brother went to high school with her. I remember going to that and being so excited she was going to Drake.
yep. So I opened up the Des Moines Register and saw that she committed to Drake. And I'm like, all right, we got something going because that was something that Drake was kind of missing at the time was
Mhm.
the in-state kids staying close. And for Caitlin, I know staying close to home, and she's actually moving back to Des Moines. She's going to be a coach at a basketball academy, and who better to
Oh,
learn
very
from
cool.
than Caitlin Ingle, and then Brooklyn Daly's mom was the head coach of that team, Tracy, and so
Yep.
there's a lot of connections, and but there have been so many great point guards. Sammy Backroat, one of the best offensive and defensive point guards that I've ever seen. I think still Drake's leader in career steals. Maddie Monahan was just that stoic presence that took over right after Caitlin Ingle graduated. And here comes Katie Dinnebeer, who we knew was an absolute star at Waukee, right? I mean, on the biggest of stages, that's where she has shined the brightest. And when she was at Waukee, under Chris Guest, their then head coach, they would play, a trap defense where they would put a lot of pressure on. And so opposing guards, Katie Dinnebeer was right near half court and saying, all right, in order for you guys to try to have any kind of success, you're going to have to get past me. And uh, more times than not, they weren't able to. And how she has been able to go from, she was, I don't want to say that she was kind of holding back offensively her first year, but there was a transition. There was no doubt about it. But to see her scoring go up, and especially, I mean, just how efficient she is from the field and from beyond the arc this year has been nothing short of breathtaking. And so we had her on the post game after one of those nights where she stuffed the stat sheet against Bradley, and she had a career high 8 steals, and she gave a little fist bump after that. And normally, Katie, when you bring up any kind of stats, any kind of records, I mean, I just probably ramble on and on saying, hey, this is your 10th career double double. This is how many games you've scored 30 or more points in. And she's like, yeah, oh, that's great, but the most important thing is that we're winning, and I'm putting my team in good positions to win, and that I have teammates that are scoring off of my assist. And she's just the ultimate teammate. But we knew early on in her high school career, like, she's got that bulldog mentality, and how that is translated. I mean, I can't think of a better point guard to match what Coach Pullman wants to do. And so if there is a Drake women's basketball Hall of Fame, I mean, we are in the 50th anniversary season after all. Katie Dinnebeer deserves her own wing. I mean, there's no question about it. How she has been able to impact the game offensively, defensively. She's leading the country in assists per game right now, and she's one of the nation's leaders in terms of points per possession. I mean, she initiates. She is the maestro of this grand orchestra that is Drake women's basketball, and she plays so hard. I have never seen a player play as hard as Katie. She's going up. It doesn't matter if you're 5'9" or if you're 6'3". If she is going down the lane, because of how strong she is, she draws contact. And yesterday, or Sunday, I should say, at Illinois State, she had 13 of her 18 points in the first quarter. She just wants to set the tone against you. And if she has to uptick that scoring, well, we saw against the likes of Iowa State and Iowa, yeah, she's got that, up her sleeve. But I mean, it's just, on top of that, Justin, she's in the pharmacy school and health sciences school. I mean, she's going to be a pharmacist. I mean, how she balances it all out, I have no idea. On top of all the other commitments, away from basketball, but she again is one of the nicest kids you'll ever be around. But she has that innate ability to flip the switch, and once she crosses those lines, like, look out. I mean, it's just, she has been one of the most fun players to watch. And I've seen Lizzie Wendell, Sarah Ryan, Becca Hittner. We have been, just really, really lucky to see some of the greatest players in the history of the Missouri Valley Conference step on campus at Forest Avenue. But Katie Dinnebeer has certainly left her mark. And each and every time you see her on the court, I mean, it's must see TV. She is box office. And the fact that she has been here for all 4 years and continuing to get better is just a testament to her, and really just, her teammates as well, and that they really rally around her. And she has just been the ultimate definition of a bulldog. If you open up the dictionary, you're going to see Katie Dinnebeer right there when you see a bulldog. And so it has just been so fun to see her go from being a freshman to now putting up historic numbers, and she's going to go down as one of the best players in program history.
I love how, so you mentioned how she doesn't really, take credit for all the other stats you bring up, but she did give you a
I
fist bump.
I try to I try to say, all right, come on, Katie, can you please? But no, that's who she is, and her folks are great too. But yeah, I try, Justin. I try to get those numbers in.
So she gave you a fist bump though when she had the career high in steals, right? On Sunday, you said.
She did. I can confirm that. Yes.
It would be, I should try to ask her Thursday if maybe defensive stats maybe do mean a little more, or you take a little more pride, because the way she does play defense,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've ever seen a point guard at Drake, let alone really anywhere, have kind of the timing that she does when it comes to taking charges. I mean, she
Yeah.
is able to put her body on the line. So it'd be interesting. That's a good one, I think. Maybe on Thursday, I might ask her because the fist bump with the 8 steals, I think, is
That
interesting.
that 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 definitely got her attention. And one example I'll give you, Haley Van Lith is one of the best guards in the country,
Oh,
right? And
yeah.
so Drake played against Louisville in the NCAA tournament a couple of years ago. I tell you what, Haley Van Lith was very, very frustrated after dealing with Katie Dinnebier for about 5 minutes because she had already picked up 2 fouls. Haley Van Lith did. And Drake, as we know, was just a few points away from coming up with a victory down in Austin, Texas. But Katie practiced against Caitlin Clark, went up against her. I mean, and also as well as Maya McDermott, one of the best guards in the Valley, if not the country. I mean, those two had battles in high school. And so Katie, it's just, been there, done that. And you look at the guards that she's had to go up against here this season alone, Lauren Jensen at Creighton, Emily Ryan at Iowa State, and then Lucy Olson this year with Iowa. And so it seems, no matter who stands in her path, Katie's ready to go. And so she has one speed, and that is just pedal to the metal. And man, again, it's so much fun to watch. But I think she really takes a lot of pride, especially on defense.
Let's talk about kind of this week's games. Two big ones. Belmont, who has been playing really well, Murray State, who is also playing really well. What can you tell us about these teams? Is there anywhere they might have maybe a little bit of an advantage or something that just Drake needs to be aware of when it comes to facing these two teams?
Well, Justin, I'm glad we're talking about these games, and the Knapp Center is the place to be. Beginning on Wednesday, the Drake men, who are rolling once again, they're taking on Illinois State Wednesday night. Thursday, taking on a Belmont team that ever since they joined the Missouri Valley Conference from the Ohio Valley Conference, where they were just completely dominant, it's been really a smooth transition. Bart Brooks is one of the best mid-major coaches in the country, and even though they've lost some pieces in the transfer portal, last year and the year prior to that, they recruit very well, and they too are able to add into the portal. I mean, they have such a great campus down there in Nashville, but it really starts with their backcourt. I mean, if there's really one backcourt that can really give fits to Katie Dinnebier, it's going to be this one. Tootie Jones is a graduate senior for them, was the Ohio Valley Defensive Player of the year prior to uh, the Bruins making that switch over to the MVC, was a third team all MVC selection last year. The year prior was held out for much of the season due to a wrist injury, but she is just so tough. She is a player that you're not going to get much from her from a scoring perspective. She can score, but her main task is defensively. And so the offensive side of it goes to a player by the name of Jalen Banks, the reigning Valley Freshman of the Year. Now, she was hurt towards the tail end of last year due to an injury, but I mean, this is going to be, get your popcorn out kind of stuff, because the battle between Jalen as well as a player like Abby Alsma on the side for Drake, that's going to be really key. She leads them in scoring at 13 and a half points per game. Emily LaChapelle transferred in from Marquette a season ago, and she's now starting for them. So they have one of the best backcourts in the Missouri Valley Conference. And then they also have some pretty versatile options in their front court. Going into Valley play, Justin, they were number 3 in the country for net strength of schedule. Just to give you a glimpse of the teams that they played: at number 13, Kansas State; 12th ranked Ohio State at home; at number 14, Duke; Mississippi State; and then they closed out non-conference at 16th ranked Kentucky. Their schedule,
Jeez.
net strength of schedule, is still 8th. So, like Drake, Belmont, because of where they're located at, they can schedule some tough teams, and they don't shy away from it at all. In fact, they've beaten some of those pretty good teams over the years and have NCAA tournament wins. And they're a team that they're motivated because while they have won a regular season title, they have yet to win a tournament title, and they have the pieces to do it. And they, again, are so well coached, and this will be the first of really 3 consecutive matchups for our women's basketball team where, yeah, you're going to have to be ready to go. And then the pink game is on Saturday, taking on a Murray State team that's kind of taken a page out of Drake's book. Rochelle Turner, who played at Murray State, she's now the all-time winningest coach there for the Racers. They're a team that, no pun intended, it's off to the races. They like to play fast. And when they're at their best, they can beat anybody in the league. Hallie Polk transferred in from Bradley. We know her from Waterloo West, was a really good player, teammates with Sahara Williams, who's now playing for Coach Baranchik down at Oklahoma. But Hallie Polk's off to a tremendous start to the year. Haven Ford also in that backcourt. She can really make things happen. And then they also have the nation. That's right. The nation's active career scoring leader, Caitlin Young. She had, gosh, I want to say this had to be in Murray State's first year as members of the Valley. She had like 28 points in a quarter, something ridiculous
Oh,
like that. Where
jeez.
I'm gonna have to go back, but she is such a fun player to watch because she can stretch the floor. You know, at 6'1", she can post you up, but she can also knock down threes. This is a really fun Murray State team to watch. Now Drake had the better of both of the matchups last year, but again, Rochelle Turner's done a good job of, because this is another team that made that transition from the Ohio Valley Conference. She realized quickly in the short time in the MVC that, hey, in order to beat a team like Drake or UNI or Missouri State or Illinois State, we've got to recreate ourselves a little bit. And so they've done it in a short period of time. And those are going to be two really challenging opponents for Drake, but they're going to be fun for folks to watch in the Knapp Center. Glad to have them here at home later this week.
Well, Hunter, thank you again so much for doing this for me. I know it's kind of short notice, just texting you if you could do it today, but it means the world, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, you caught me in the window where, I'm just getting back from a fun road trip in central Illinois. Full disclosure, I'm a Minnesota Vikings fan, so they're playing in Arizona for the playoffs against the LA Rams, and so had some free time in between, and always great to catch up with you, my friend. Really love the this new platform, and
Well,
just
thank you.
honored to be on, and yeah, for all things, again, following Drake basketball, Drake athletics. This is the spot right here. So thanks for having me on.
No, I really appreciate it. Anything you want to plug to the listeners, the viewers? You can, of course, listen to you throughout the season on 1350 ESPN, but anywhere else that they can catch you as well, Hunter.
I tell you, the greatest thing that Learfield has been able to launch here over the last few years has been the Varsity Network app. It's free. You don't have to create any kind of an account or anything, and it's your one stop shop for streaming home and away games, our broadcast, also any of the Drake Sports Media Podcast Network podcasts, including the Be Blue podcast. It's all housed right there. And yeah, it's a great place to be able to follow along. I know in a day and age where it's great to be able to watch on ESPN Plus and different outlets, but it's always nice to hear from fans and from family members that they'll often, when we're on the road, especially, they'll mute the TV and sync up our broadcast. So that is certainly something that you can do. So that way there's not too much of a delay. But yeah, no, we're on that platform, and yeah, otherwise just come down, say hi when we're at the Knapp Center. We're just we've got the best fans in the valley, so this is where it's all at.
Hunter, again, thank you so much. I'll be sure to keep annoying you throughout the season and even during the off season too.
Hey, we're Drake alum, Jay Schooler, so we're all in it together, and we're all Bulldogs. So anything for you, Justin, and yeah, keep up the great work.
A huge thank you to Hunter Phillips for coming on the show today. Definitely we'll have him on again as the season progresses, but definitely couldn't ignore the huge impacts these next two games for the Drake women have. So great insight from Hunter as always. So huge thank you to him for always supporting Media Row Pod. A huge thank you to you as always for supporting us. Go follow on social media and make sure to watch those highlights, like, click, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. Tomorrow show, it will be kind of a preview of what we will see with Illinois State taking on Drake at home, but kind of maybe dive a little more into what we're seeing in the NFL playoffs too. We have some really good divisional rounds coming up. We also have the MVP debate. Maybe that will get settled over the weekend as the Bills take on the Ravens. So we'll talk about that too, as well as just other big Missouri Valley Conference news, big games. We'll preview those as well. So make sure to click back on and listen to Media Row Pod tomorrow at 2 o'clock.